Today on the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast podcast, Brock, Shannon, and I have a good conversation about disruptive youth ministry. In a time when it feels like churches want to play it safe and deliver certainty, youth pastors have the unique opportunity to play the disruptor by asking great questions, sharing our own vulnerable doubts, and allowing for mystery. Might we be able to lead our students into a deeper, more robust faith? Anyway, we are back with our first full-length episode of the fall. Sorry it took so long. We have day jobs. Anyway, roll down the windows and let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast podcast. My name is Steve Anderson. I'm joined by my co-hosts Shannon Dunn and Brock Morgan. We are proud members of the Download Youth Ministry family of podcasts, and we are finally back with our first full-length episode of the fall. We got all the way through September into October after doing the triple play experience, and hey, it's good to be back. How you guys doing?
It is.
Doing great. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Brock's in a new house. That's exciting.
I am in a new house. I'm not currently in a new house, but we moved into we bought a home. We bought a home, guys.
That's very exciting.
It can be done in Southern California.
That's a lie.
You can buy a home.
That's amazing.
Don't fool people.
I'm a youth pastor, so it can be done.
How many places did you have to live in the interim, Brock?
Yeah, so it's a new home. Well, let's call it what it is. It's a townhouse. It's a new build. And there's a 3-story townhouse. Dude, it sucks. You go out to the car and you're like, crap, I forgot something. You got to run up 3 flights of steps to oh my gosh, but we love it. It's
first world problems.
I know. It's beautiful. My wife picked everything and she makes everything beautiful. And
no.
It's fun. It was 4 months delayed.
Yeah.
So we moved out of our rental and we moved in with a friend, and then something happened with him, and then we had to move out of his house, but our place just kept getting delayed for 4 months. So we moved 10 times this summer.
Oh my gosh.
And it was gnarly. Like
yeah.
it was an exhausting thing for my family.
Yeah. You should have just moved in with the Dunns because they bought a new house last year, and you could have lived there for a couple months.
She didn't even offer. There wasn't
there
wasn't even like, hey, just to throw it out there.
What kind of friend is she?
No offer.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
Also, house is a big word for what I bought as well. So
yeah.
Modular home.
But is your modular home? I've seen your modular home. It's cool.
I love it.
Is it movable? Like if you moved, could you?
Great question. I mean, probably technically if we moved into another mobile home park, technically, but it would probably be.
Because yours looks like a house to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're all houses. They're not like on wheels anymore.
When
but
I
they
think
come
of like
in
a
on wheels.
double wide trailer, I think of like a double wide trailer.
Yeah.
You put that thing on wheels, you can live anywhere.
Yeah,
but your house looks more like stationary.
My Tesla. God, that was so Californian. The Tesla that I drive.
Oh, you have a Tesla too.
Okay, sorry, guys.
Oh my gosh. Who am I even with on this show?
Okay, listen, when you drive into our neighborhood though, the Tesla cameras like pick up like people and they like put them on the screen. It shows all the houses as semi trucks. Like they don't show up as like buildings. They show up like they think it's semi trucks.
Wow.
Okay, I have never really ridden in a Tesla.
Okay.
You're saying that on your screen people pop up? What does this mean?
Okay, I'll take a video next time and show you.
Steve, do you know what this is?
I do. I have been in
Does
a Tesla
it identify
before.
the person?
I've never owned a Tesla.
No.
But yes, I have been in a Tesla.
Listen,
before.
this is the game I play. I walk into a parking
Whatever.
lot around here and I go, literally, this is my thought all the time. Which is my Tesla? I can't find it.
Oh, yes.
I don't know
Wow.
a person that does it.
What color is yours?
It's like that dark gray.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called.
And everyone has
charcoal.
it. So you're like, which is mine?
Which Tesla is mine?
Oh my gosh.
I drive a minivan. My husband drives the Tesla.
I just bought a new pickup.
Nice.
I sound like I'm from Kentucky. I just bought a new pickup.
No one in California calls them pickups.
A pickup. And it's black. You know how many people have a black pickup? I was like, which one's mine? I literally have walked to the wrong pickup.
I've tried to get in the wrong Tesla too many times.
You're losing about 90% of the country right now.
Sorry. All right.
Well, she's got a Tesla and I've got a pickup, but my pickup's a hybrid. So that tells you.
Exactly. California problems.
Jeez. You guys need to live in the real world. You need to live in a...
I know.
You need to live in a red state.
You're right.
Anyway, so it is good to be back. And as we think about the episodes and what we want to talk about this fall, lots of things come to mind. But Brock, you recently had an experience that I think is kind of going to direct our conversation today. As we think about youth ministry, there's a reason that most of us feel called to youth ministry as opposed to adult ministry. And I think for many of us, the germination of that passion comes from the need to be different, the need to see change in a different way, to not be beholden to the way things always are, to always be looking for a new path forward. Let's use the word disruptive. We want to be disruptive with people in terms of faith and see faith be real in people's lives. And in youth ministry, that seems to be easier. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair description of?
I do think
that the passion of it.
As we get older, we can become more complacent.
Sure.
As we get older, we can get stuck into routine. If you're thinking about spirituality or like we can get stuck into have a religious spirit and be okay with that. Maybe not down deep, but I think that a lot of youth workers have stayed in youth work because maybe there's a touch more openness to disruption and change in youth work. And so we long for, as youth workers, we long for transformation and changed lives. And I think older pastors who are working with older folks, they do that also. But that can be the frustration is, man, my dad told me, he was like, one of my biggest regrets was that I became a lead pastor and I got out of youth work because in youth work, every week I saw changed lives. I saw kids open in ways that I didn't necessarily see adults open. And maybe things have changed. I do feel like there's even an openness among adults, but right now I feel like there's this longing inside of kids. They know they're not okay. My generation, we were fine. We didn't want, we were fine with where things were. We were fine with things in the world. We were less aware of problems. We didn't have the internet quite yet. And these kids are like, this isn't working. What we're doing isn't working. And so I feel like, are you guys seeing this? Kids are like, hoping for change, longing for change.
Brock, I'm curious, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but why do you think that kids, students, whatever, teens are more aware now of that things are not okay? Like, do you think culture or the internet or something is leading them, or they just actually feel it, or they're reading about like how, I'm reading about how teens are not okay. What do you think is, I don't know, causing sort of this?
I think kids are very much aware of, we've already on previous episodes maybe discussed the statistics of where kids are. They're very aware of their own fears and anxieties and addictions, and feeling overwhelmed with loneliness and isolation, and there's something wrong. I go to sleep with this weight on my chest, and I wake up and it's still there. And kids are very much aware of their own emptiness or brokenness, or and maybe in a way that my generation was less aware of. Probably just as broken, just as hurting, but not nearly. It didn't. You look at like suicide rates up, self-harm rates up, and we're talking about significantly.
Yeah.
Kids talk to each other. They share their difficulties with one another. Research tells us this. So they are. They're very much aware. Man, I feel broken. All my friends are broken. And so there is this awareness. And I do think there's an awareness of the brokenness in the world because of the internet. Now, we know that is not true all the time. Like because we see violence in the world, we think the world is more violent, but it actually isn't. But we're not meant to see every single wrong thing in the world comes to our phone. We're not, and it's so very overwhelming. But it does, I think, to answer your question, I do think there's way more of an awareness that there's something not right in the world.
I'm very curious because I have a student that moved here from somewhere in the Midwest or something, and she seemed in a strange sense like less aware of some of these as like a cultural issue than some of my students in California. I'm actually curious, Steve, do you feel the same way about students that you work with and their awareness of all of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I think, we still have a fairly significant kind of conservative base of culture in our church, at least. But I think our area would not be considered conservative. Maryland's definitely a more progressive state. So, yeah, what I'm seeing is kind of a divide. More church families are kind of doubling down on their protection a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, the kids are aware of what's going on for sure. And yeah, they see all of this. And there is, Brock, you're right, there is a longing. A longing to be part of a community where they feel like there's something transcendent, they're loved, they're known. I mean, that's youth ministry at its core, to be loved and known. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a cultural phenomenon, if it's just we're more aware. I don't really know.
I feel like it's a cultural phenomenon to one degree or another. Someone, their personality type might be where they are unaware of anything outside of themselves.
Sure.
So as you think about ministering to kids, then what is it that we can help to foster in our environments that allow us to disrupt them towards the positive, towards the Lord?
Well, I think that was the experience I had. I was speaking last week in the Bay Area, just north of Berkeley, and
conservative hotbed,
very conservative hotbed, but easy. I mean,
it's a large Amish population there in Berkeley.
Oh my gosh, stop. For people listening who don't know, that is not true.
Yeah, I wore my Amish hat.
There's probably like the more nudist colonies in Berkeley than anywhere else in the world.
Oh yeah, well I was wearing.
That's what I would guess.
I had clothes on.
That's a whole new type of youth ministry right there.
Yeah. So here's the thing is that at the end I was like, hey, if you want to open your life to Jesus, let's do this. And I mean, the entire room moved to go get prayed for or whatever. I didn't see much emotional. Like I saw one girl came up to me crying. it wasn't like overtly emotional, like you see at like the cry night at camp or whatever. It was just, I want if this is true, I want this. I want to know Jesus. And afterwards, kids were telling me that there was something unique happening on their high school campuses and middle school campuses. It was like the Christian clubs were exploding with growth, and there was this openness to Jesus. And midway through my talk, all the football players from this team walked in late from practice. They didn't want to miss the night, so they came. And I mean, it's just very interesting to see this. Like, we're longing for what's real. We want truth. We want Jesus. And I just, I'm sensing something too. And so it's just, it's interesting as youth workers, how can we instigate? We're always wanting to instigate, maybe disrupt the status quo. I like that word, Steve, disrupt, or instigate. We could instigate a more robust intellectual faith, a thoughtful faith, instigate a more passionate move of the Spirit, instigate whatever. And I just thought this would be a fun conversation. How do we foster what's already seemingly, maybe not in your specific area, I'm sure every area is a little different, but there seems to be a cultural shift to maybe an openness. I mean, you see more and more people, even in Hollywood, and musicians opening their lives to Jesus. It just seems a little like there's something happening.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a place for us as youth pastors to be subversive?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I feel like that's probably part of what draws me to youth ministry.
Yes.
If you ask
Jesus
my wife,
was so subversive.
You're a little bit of a rebel. You don't want to do what everyone else says you should do. And so in youth ministry, at least in our context, there's some freedom that I have with our students in conversation and the context that we have together to push that envelope, maybe in a way that I wouldn't do with the whole church. I mean, that sounds terrible. I'm not trying to be undermining, because I don't think it's not unorthodox.
Right.
It's simply not status quo. It's simply not.
Well,
yeah.
I feel like part of that is like one of the ways we're trying to, disrupt is that we're trying to almost disrupt their way of thinking, because if they're not thinking for themselves as a youth, like, I just don't think they're actually like getting to the real thought, right? Like, or they're not, they almost have to come up with themselves. I think that's part of faith formation, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you are instigating with a kid questions about the faith that they've always assumed to be true, and that's what they've always heard and known, and causing them to rethink it for themselves, it feels like subversion, but what it really is a strengthening and an unleashing of their faith to something greater and better.
Occasionally I'll speak at a camp, and I'll do a talk. I wrote a talk that I love to give, and it's reasons why you shouldn't follow Jesus.
Oh, there you go.
And when I give this, like, dude, it's way too hard to follow Jesus. When I give this talk, the whole room, because I framed the gospel as difficult, they want in.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't want an easy faith. It's really interesting, that subversiveness to the wait, this requires my all? Dude, that's what I want.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think Jesus said something about that.
Yes.
I'm going to do a
Jesus
series.
was subversive. I can barely say that word, right? Himself.
Yes.
I've been percolating a series.
Oh, I love percolation.
Yeah, it makes me think of coffee.
Big words coming.
I've been percolating a series. It's kind of an apologetic series, but it's not really an apologetic series. I'm just thinking about.
Okay, tell us more, Steve.
Well, it's not. I don't have it all figured out yet. It's not like, proof of the empty tomb. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you read the Bible well to be able to believe the Bible? You know, what do you see in science that leads you to believe the Bible? How do science and faith converge? Questions like that.
Sure.
I think
That's
kids really have
apologetic-y.
a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not traditional apologetic-y though.
Yeah. No, I do think
we're not only saying big words, we're creating words here.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
But I think that if you're talking about how do we have a disruptive youth ministry that disrupts complacency, disrupts small thinking, disrupts choices that are hurting us, disrupts whatever. How do we run where kids come into the room, feel safe, loved, known, but also challenged, and they're a part. They see that they're a part of something transcendent, something larger than themselves, a movement, not a movement of status quo, a movement of change and transformation, and a movement of the Spirit, where it's unpredictable at times, and mystery, embracing mystery, and that mystery is disruptive.
Yes.
You know, how do we as youth workers create an environment of disruption is a good question.
Can I throw something out and see what you guys think of this?
Yeah.
I think it starts with us.
Yes.
I think it starts with us in the way that we frame our faith in front of kids. When we are vulnerable and we share our questions and share our things that we wonder about and are mysterious to us without feeling the need to wrap it all in a bow at the end, I think that gives kids the freedom to be able to go down that same trail. And the ones who are thoughtful are going to come back to us and be like, well, can you talk to me about this? I want to think about this. And that's just, further exploration that leads to greater intimacy with Christ. So I think our own vulnerability, and that's part of what I mean by disruptive. Like, I don't know, could I say that in a sermon on Sunday morning? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I should, but I don't know that I do. Adults want a certain level of certainty, it feels like, maybe. Or churches want a certain level of certainty, which, again, not talking anything unorthodox, but kids need to wrestle with the mystery to come to the faith themselves. And we are the ones who can help set the model of that with the way that we speak and teach.
I recently I did a Kickstarter. I didn't do one. I bought into a Kickstarter like 3 years ago, and the book, it was a Bible, a new kids Bible. It just came through. Anyways, it's called The Book of Belonging. I'm obsessed with it. It's like feeding my soul as I read it to my kids, but they have these little pauses called wonder moments. And so it's like after the creation story, there's a wonder moment, and it talks about like those questions kids have without really answers, but it talks about how even though we don't know where dinosaurs fit into the creation story necessarily or whatnot, it says it more beautifully, but it's kind of like, but does that change the way that you belong to Jesus? Like having that answer, or you belong in the family of God. Anyways, it's so beautiful. And I just love that there's a children's Bible being like, let's wonder about this. Because there's nothing wrong with wondering about the mysteries of God that we are not going to know why we're here on this earth. And they don't change that we belong to him. Right. Anyway, yeah, I think it's so my favorite thing really is when a student asks a question that I say, I don't know. I don't know. And I think we have to be really comfortable saying, I don't know. Here's what I know about God in my life. And I don't know. I don't know about dinosaurs, whatever,
Dude,
whatever it is. That's just a silly example.
That reminds me. I remember doing that. A kid asked me a question. I said, I don't know. And then his response to me was, well, if you don't know, why am I even here? Like if you don't know, then what's the point? What's the point of this whole thing? And I looked at him and I was like, if you ever hear someone who acts like they know that question, the answer to that question, run, because that's a cult. And he was like, "Oh, okay."
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's so funny. But we cannot be afraid of I don't know. If we are, we're verging on being a cult, because some of these questions are meant for us to just contemplate.
Are there things that we can do, like practical things that we can create, environments, conversations that lead to disruptive thinking?
Well, I think what you just said, Steve, is a huge first step. When I am wrestling and agonizing over youth group, 2-3 days before youth group, I'm seeking God, I'm praying, I'm going for prayer walks, I'm like doing the battle spiritually. Something happens inside of me. This longing gets stirred up. My passion gets stirred up. I'm stirring up my most holy faith. The scriptures calls us to. It's like, so I walk in and I give them this thing that I've been wrestling with that is covered in prayer. And I see a big difference in my own life when my preparation is a spiritual wrestling with the Lord. Versus going in lazy or going in half-ass or going in maybe even like I'm going to blow them away intellectually. I want to impress them with my knowledge.
Right.
And I leave wanting, and so do they. But when I go in like having wrestled spiritually, there's something in me that is important. A shift happens in me. And I see that it's like that spiritual legacy passed to them. And I think that if you're wanting a youth ministry where we are instigating movements and instigating and disrupting things, it starts with my own disruption. Where does my faith need disrupt? Where have I compromised? Where am I apathetic? You know, what thinking have I grown accustomed to that's making my life small? So I do think it starts with us. I did have another thought, and I'd love to hear. I think bringing stories to my youth group of kids living out their faith on campus, reading scripture, getting actually living the faith, walking the way of Jesus. I see that their faith bolstered. Like it gets that me bringing them stories of disruption and the stories of a movement of Jesus. I see them like perk up, like they really want that. So even me going to the Bay Area, and it was nothing I did. It was something that was already happening. I happened to walk into. I bring that back. And my kids go, man, we want to make a difference on our campus.
That's cool.
So I think that it starts with us, and then maybe it's bringing these stories to our kids. It wakes them up to a greater reality of what's happening.
I got to read you guys a text I got this morning.
Oh,
well, actually, one of my youth leaders got this from a student. He forwarded it to me, which makes it even better, right? Came to my youth leader first. This kid was at a youth group last night. He said, I'll read it in his own vernacular. I'm going to get more people from Middletown to come tonight. Just wait. There's barely any people from Middletown that goes, and I don't like that. Give me a few weeks.
Love it.
There you go. Let's go Middletown.
All right, Middletown.
Let's go.
Brock,
don't you love that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do.
Something that strikes me when you share about the movements happening that you're seeing or in your youth group, or as you are unafraid to do things that some people, myself included, potentially in different seasons, might feel like this isn't going to be welcoming to a kid who doesn't yet know Jesus.
Totally.
So your prayer movements and some of these things, you are unafraid to do things that will create transformation, that will create movement, that will do things, because you're not afraid that a kid's going to come and feel made uncomfortable by those. And I think that is a disruption in itself in a great way. And that's just always challenged me, is like, you're not, you're still creating obviously like belonging and safety and comfort for the kids showing up. I know that, but yeah, you're unafraid to try things that create movement and create transformation.
Dude, I started in Young Life. So I was a young life leader all through college, and then I was the LA area wildlife leader. And so I have an evangelistic heart, so I'm very aware of unsaved kids, or kids walking in new, or and so I remember trying some things that my young life fellow workers thought, that seems too deep or too spiritual, or that's going to make a kid uncomfortable. And I remember doing it, going, actually, it's the opposite.
Right.
Like, I disagree. Ultimately, I ended up leaving Young Life because I felt like it was too boxed in. Like, oh no, we only do this method, or we only do these things. And I actually felt the deeper things resonated more with the unsaved kids than the shallow things.
Sure.
Like, we're too busy. Like, give us something give us something meaty. And so I actually felt the opposite. And so I see kids who are atheists writing prayers to God every week. And we would never have kids write prayers to the Lord in the middle of a club at Young Life.
Yeah.
But it's very comfortable. The entire room writing prayers, and they told me last week they didn't believe in Jesus. And so I don't know. I feel frustrated by the, you can't do certain things because so-and-so is going to be uncomfortable. And I want to be aware of discomfort, especially kids who are struggling with social anxiety. But this idea that you can't do prayer exercises with non-believers is a pile of malarkey.
Yeah.
I just disagree philosophically. You can tell I'm passionate.
Wait, did we strike something in you? I can't tell.
Yes, it goes back to my Young Life days of going, this is that's too youth groupy. You need to do Young Life here. And I remember thinking, I can do skits like you, but I can also do prayer exercises in the same night.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling so frustrated by the limitations of that.
I have a couple thoughts on that. One is that that's a biblical illustration. I mean, you think about the book of Acts, and what draws people is the miraculous work in the disciples.
Dude, right?
When they start speaking the languages of the people in the area, or speaking the language
will
of
convince
people,
you.
Yeah, then it says thousands were added to their number because of the depth of their faith. So I think there's a biblical precedent for that. And I do think it's possible, maybe not 100%, but it's possible to have an environment that isn't off-putting, even if it goes deeper in some sense. Like there's so much you could do in the front end of that, or the relationships or the conversations you have to make everyone feel like they're at home there.
Totally. I think it might
doesn't have to be shallow.
The biggest key.
Yeah.
Is you've got to know how to set the room.
Yeah.
You've got to know how to set the audience up to experience something they maybe have never done before.
Yes.
And there's a way to do that. There's an art to that. You don't just spring, coming to, going to a leader to get prayed for out of nowhere.
And there's the freedom to not respond if you don't want to respond. You don't want to be manipulative to kids
it's like,
either.
when you're presenting the gospel, it's always good to have it be question based, where you could say, man, it's for some of you this may not even resonate. You're like, and others of you, you're like, this really resonates. Both are normal. Like, to normalize both things, or like you're talking about. We've talked about feelings before. So it's very normal to feel the presence of God. And it's also very normal to not feel the presence of God. And both are normal. So the whole audience goes, oh, okay, so I'm not weird because I feel nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that girl over there is crying. Should I be crying?
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't. Like, both are fine.
That's all really good, Brock. I'm thinking about, we have a retreat coming up here in about a month. And I've shared this before. We've done this retreat every year. It's the 25th anniversary of the retreat. So we've got the whole thing programmed down to a T, right? Have my buddy Irv's coming in to speak. You guys know Irv.
Oh, fun. How great.
It's going to be great. Content, worship, everything is going to be great. But you know what the highlight will be for 75% of the kids on that retreat will be the prayer room that we create for them, which they do on Saturday morning. It's like an hour-long experiential time with God, and without few exceptions, that is the highlight of the retreat, because kids are longing for that transcendent moment. And that's a deep thing. That's deeper than the skits we do on Saturday night, but that's what they're going to remember. So
Yeah.
I love that, Steve,
that.
and I love that you do that.
It's a reminder that they can handle it.
Yeah,
dude, they can totally handle it. And I guess that maybe we have to remember is that even the kid who seems apathetic and in the back, or that across the board humanity has this longing. C.S. Lewis talks about this, but we all have this
Augustine
longing.
says this, yeah.
Or he wrote about this. He's dead now. You know,
Augustine, he's been dead a while.
I said C.S. Lewis. Oh,
yeah,
you said Augustine?
No, I quoted Augustine last night. Yeah.
But we can't forget that you can't just label kids as, that kid doesn't care, so I can't do certain things.
Yeah.
No, actually, below the surface, humanity is longing for more.
Yeah.
And so maybe at youth group could be a place where they get more. A little more love, a little more presence, a little more attention of their leader. They're heard. There's a space to open their lives more to Jesus. A little more. We give them a little more. We instigate change.
We can do that because we are the secret disruptors.
We are.
And that's why we're better than adult ministry. I'm just kidding.
I love it.
It's good.
Yeah. Don't think that you have to have an environment that is the same week after week and never takes kids to a different place. I mean, be willing to take a risk. Throw them into the deep end of the pool and see what happens.
Yep.
Love it.
All right, we'll be back in short order with our next episode of the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast. In the meantime, if you wouldn't mind reaching out to us, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would love that. Yes, we have some 5-star reviews.
What?
But we need more because it helps people find us. Share us with a friend or send us an email at youthministrysherpas@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Till then, guys, it's been real. Can't wait to get together again. Go.
Awesome.
Be disruptors.
Let's go.
Peace out. Woo!